Hello, everyone. Anthea Durant here. Welcome to my podcast, Ancestral Wisdom and Evolution. Hello, welcome to episode 2 of my podcast, Ancestral Wisdom and Evolution. I'm really thrilled to have Cali White with me today. Cali White is an ancestral healing practitioner focused on healing the generational wounds rooted in the European witch hunts of 1450 to 1750. Welcome, Cali.
Hi, well, thank you.
It's lovely to have you here.
Yeah, good to be here.
So, first of all, I'd like to ask, how did you connect with your ancestral healing work?
Great. Yeah, good question to start with. So it's been a bit, the whole ancestral it's been a magical journey, really. And back in, it was 2003, I started a psychotherapy training in psychosynthesis, which is a transpersonal model. So it includes mind, body, feelings, and also spirit. And that at that time, I think, in hindsight, I can see that I was spiritually disconnected and empty. I'd lived the high life in London, work in a corporate job and work hard, play hard, and social life and all of that. And I started to feel the emptiness of that, and began searching. And the psychosynthesis really, I went into it thinking I wanted to work with other people and help other people, and very quickly realized that actually I needed the healing for myself. And so that kind of triggered the start of my spiritual seeking, if you like. And like many people, I turned to other cultures, other approaches, and I looked into Buddhism and Taoism and the Native American teachings and wisdom. I guess were what spoke to me the most, and I think it was because of the land connection, that my path took me into vision questing and sweat lodges and working with the medicine wheel, very earth-based work, and it was incredibly healing. And I learned so much and I gained so much from it. And yet I'd never really thought about my own ancestors. And then I think it was 2016 or 2017 when Standing Rock was going on over in the States in North Dakota, and the water protectors were gathering. All the Native American tribes were coming together to stand for the earth. I just had this deep knowing that what they were doing was really important. It was about much more than just that one pipeline. And I was watching the live streams coming out through Facebook and on social media, because obviously it wasn't covered in the mainstream press. And I just had this urge. I knew I needed to do something to support them. So I set up a Facebook group, the UK Stands with Standing Rock, and I raised a whole lot of money. And then a friend and I, it was like we needed to do something to connect energetically, to connect spiritually with them. And so we ended up doing this, a little 5-day journey in December, in the middle of winter. We started at Pentre Ifan, which is an ancient burial chamber in Wales. And it's where the blue stones that are part of Stonehenge archaeologists have traced that they originated from there, from the Preseli Mountains. So we started there, and in my little camper van in the middle of winter, we did this 5-day journey, stopping at 7 different sacred sites, like stone circles and long barrows along the way, and holding little ceremonies. Like, we didn't really know what we were doing. We would smudge, we'd light a candle, we would offer some prayers, we would think about all those people standing for the earth, standing for the water. And we decided to end our journey at Stonehenge on the morning of the winter solstice, which is one of there's 2 days a year that the stones are open to the public. And that's one of them. And there's always a big ceremony, and the druids are there, and it's quite a thing. And we'd put it out on Facebook as an event, and 500 people said they were coming. And it was like, oh my God, what are we doing? The druids are going to be there. Who are we to do this? Whatever. So we turn up, and we're terrified, and we've got our drums, and we've got water is life banners, and the UK stands with Standing Rock. And we just, after the druid thing, everyone's just the druid ceremony where everyone's milling around, and we gathered a circle of people. There was like, I don't know, 200-300 people. And everyone was interested. We were talking about what was happening at Standing Rock. We had little postcards, and people wrote messages for them. And then we gathered this circle and held this ceremony. And at the end of the ceremony, I read out loud Crazy Horse's Final Prophecy, which is quite a well-known one. And it's all about the white man returning to the indigenous people for salvation, right, to show us the way home, because we've gone so awry. And it was a prophecy that really had spoken to me. And the minute I had finished reading it, under the stones, these massive stones of Stonehenge, I hear this voice, this booming male voice behind me saying, "You have your own ancestors." And I was like, it was like a double tip. It was like, what? He turned around to see who was there, and there was no one there. And it was like, oh, who was that? What was that? And that was really like a bit of a wake up call, an instruction, a spark. It lit the spark in me to really think about, oh yeah, like I do, and who are they, and what does that mean? And and so that kind of started this next chapter of my inner journey, searching and trying to heal the wounds of disconnection within me. And one of the things I did, I found a woman that was offering a weekend about Celtic shamanism. And at that point, I'd never seen anyone else offer that. So I went, and we journeyed and met our Neolithic ancestors, and she took us to a long barrow and stone circles, and kind of talked about the ancient, what we know of the Celtic traditions, or the Neolithic traditions, pre-Celtic actually. And I then got really interested in history, and I wanted to know what's the timeline? Like, where are my indigenous roots? The Native Americans still have their indigenous roots. They're much closer. They're much, they're still alive in their lineages. Not for all of them, of course, but it is still there in their culture. So where are my indigenous roots? So I started to kind of follow that thread through this workshop, through reading, what's the timeline? So then seeing that, there was the Normans from France, and then the Vikings, and the Anglo-Saxons, and the Romans, and then the Celtics, the Celtic peoples, and all the different tribes. And then the Neolithic times, you get, with the stone circles and the long barrows. And then your course kept popping up on my Facebook feed, annoyingly, because I really didn't want to have to come into London every weekend. But it was just like, it kept calling me. It was calling me. It was like, and I kind of, I know myself well enough now to know when these things keep knocking, I need to follow them, right? So that was kind of how I found my way to you. And then, and then that was there's a couple of pieces with ancestral work. One is understanding the lineage and the history and the kinds of lives and the belief systems that are the people that I have descended from, held. And then there's the working with the spirit, working with what we're carrying somatically, reclaiming the gifts and the strengths and the things that we've lost, but also healing the wounds, right? Because that, it's huge. So that was kind of how I got into it and how it all started. Yeah.
So you've really followed the call of your ancestors. So what gifts do you think this path, has given you from your ancestors? What gift have you connected with?
So many. It's been like the missing piece of the jigsaw for me. So I was adopted and carried the wound of separation from mother, which I had no idea was there. I had no idea what that was or how that impacted me until I went into psychotherapy and that training, and then being in therapy myself, and all the reading and the experiential work that I did. And so that all of that work gave me a lot and helped me make sense of a lot of things. But I still carried this sense of not really knowing who I was, or not having a sense of being held. And it was the ancestral work that really was it, it felt like the missing piece of the jigsaw, that through that and through the lineage work has given me a sense of home. Like, I am of this land, my people, even that with ancestors, with a lot in my work now. When I first start working with people, when you start to talk about ancestors, most people initially will think of recent ancestors and people that they've known in their lives, like grandparents or great aunts and uncles or their parents, right? And for me, the gifts have really come from going further back than that and thinking about the lineage, like, as I said, back to up to indigenous roots, and feeling the resonance of that in my body on this land, so that I don't need to go off searching to India, to America, to other countries, to other places to find it. It's like, this is home now, on a kind of on the macro level, like this country. And it's that feeling, that sense, that it's just shifted everything for me. It's kind of like it's given me my confidence back. It's given me that, like, knowing who I am and being okay with who I am, despite all my foibles and imperfections and all of that. And the other, like, big massive thing is purpose. So when I was doing my training with you, and we were using the shamanic drum technique as was one of the tools that you were teaching, to connect with ancestors, I was practicing every day pretty much. Like I was drumming every day, and uh, and and at the same time I'm watching history documentaries and immersing myself in all of that, and I bumped into the witch hunts. It's like there's this 300-year period of witch hunts in our collective history, which I knew about, and I knew about witches. I was never really called to that path, or never considered myself a witch or any of that. And my ancestors from those times started to flood into my journeys every day. And it wasn't just the witches, right? It wasn't just the women that were hung or burned or accused or whatever. It was ancestors from that time period in general. So there were men, there were women, there were children, and what would happen is they would show me their lives, what had happened to them. And some of it was really quite harrowing and really tragic and sad. And I would come out of the journey, and somatically, it was like I was feeling what they hadn't been able to feel or express. And I am being asked to do that. And so this whole thing about the witch hunts, the more I worked with it, it's like I was making connections and understanding how the survival patterns of the past have and we still we still carry them today. Like we know through epigenetics that trauma is passed down and we inherit it. And what I started to make the connection with was like I for years I've sat in women's circles, I've ran women's circles, I've done a lot of women's kind of empowerment work, and through all of that time, whilst I got a lot out of that, there was always this like underlying sense of is this really safe? Can I really trust this? What is this? Like, have these women really got my back? And what my ancestors showed me was the trauma wound of the betrayal of women against women, like women being forced to betray each other under torture, to name, if you were accused of being a witch and under torture pressed for an accusation, you were also asked who you were working with, because there was a belief that witches didn't work alone. And in those days, people only knew their neighbors and their family, right? So they were forced to betray their own. And it kind of showed me this link, like now, how that's been passed down, and how like mothers, to keep their daughters safe, keep them small, and keep we stay separate to stay safe. And just how much now, as that survival patterning continues, how much it's harming our health and our well-being, and because we're designed to be connected and live in community and rely on each other and support each other. And so the ancestors, the guidance was to having done a whole, my own work around it, was then to take it out into the world and to share it with other women, which was like it was like a mission. It was like a spiritual mission for the first time. I had this sense of being clear on what do I need to do with my life? Like I need to do this now. And so it took me out on a 13-moon pilgrimage around. I gave up my home. I was recently divorced. I gave up my home and went out in a van around the whole of the UK and Ireland. And the instruction was to gather women every full moon in ceremony to honor the women that had been persecuted as witches. And it was terrifying at the beginning, and then with each ceremony, more and more women came. Like I started with 5, and then by the end there was like 70. And it really showed me how just the resonance in the collective field, that it's like we do our personal work. There's inner personal level work, inner child work, if you like, this lifetime work. And then there's the collective ancestral field, and what we're carrying from that, and how we all connect in that, and how we all are together in that. And so that's become my passion and my purpose, and that work goes on in various forms, and it's beautiful, and it's challenging, and it's heartwarming, and it's inspiring, and it's all sorts of things. So yes, that I'm daily grateful to for my ancestral connection, for having found my way back to having ancestral connection as part of my everyday life, and being a support in my life, and guidance, and a level of support that I know that I can trust and rely on. And it kind of it takes away fear. That going out on the road like that, it was like, okay, I'm gonna follow your instruction. I'm gonna do this thing, and it's terrifying, and you've got to make sure I'm all right. And the handing over of it, and once I'd done that it was like the fear was gone. It was like I'm held in this. And that I had the most magical year, with being sent to magical places, meeting amazing people, having incredible experiences, each one all little spoons of medicine that I needed for my own healing, that I could then use in service of the collective. So yeah, I mean, life-changing gifts.
That's so powerful how you that initial ancestor connected at the stone circle, and then you following your guidance from that, and then just letting go and going on this amazing journey, connecting in a van, was it connecting with all these women. Extraordinary. And I've been following your work, how it's really expanded from there. So this leads perfectly onto your work with the Witches Revival, which is huge.
Yes, so the Witches Revival it's a 4-day event that I'm co-creating with 3 other women in Lancaster in August, and it's the 17th to the 20th of August, and we've chosen that weekend because it's the anniversary of the Pendle Witch trials. The trials, the Pendle Witches are in England. You've got the Pendle Witch story, and then the Matthew Hopkins trials down in East Anglia. And because of the detailed trial records that have survived, they're probably the 2 most well-known witch hunt stories in England. And the trial in Lancaster was 2 days, and then on the 20th, the 10 of them were hung. One of them had died in prison, Old Demdike, a woman in her 80s. And so we're going to honor them. There's lots of layers to the event. One of the layers is memorializing the witches. And, you know, for me, it's important, but it's important that we do it in a way that actually shifts something or changes something, makes a difference. Like, you know, I think every year when we honor the soldiers of the First World War, it's a beautiful thing to do, and yet we're still fighting wars. So, you know, we're kind of missing the point. And so with this, we're remembering the you know, witches. They were women and two men, ordinary people like us, you know, victims of a miscarriage of justice, really. And let's remember them, but also use their tragedy to mirror something, to teach us something about ourselves, because the victim and the perpetrator dynamic runs in all of us. Psychologically, you know, we can all be the victim, we can all be the persecutor or the perpetrator. And so the event is it's rooted in the Pendle Witches, and on the Sunday we are having an outdoor kind of Memorial Day. So we're going to start at Lancaster Castle and have a ceremony to honor them in there. That was where they were held, in the prison there. And then we're going to walk the route. We're going to process like a pilgrimage, and walk the route that they were carted up to Gallows Hill, which is now a big park in Lancaster. And you know, we're going to do kind of a few different rituals and things along the way, but end up on the hill there and have a celebration. And the theme of the event is reclaiming what we lost, because linking ancestral work with psychological work and trauma work, you know, what we see is what we've suppressed, you know, what's been oppressed and what we continue to oppress and suppress in ourselves, right? So the theme of the event is reclaiming what we've lost. And that's about the parts of ourselves that we've lost. So we're creating an archetypal journey through the witch archetypes, really. So the wise woman and the intuitive and the creatrix and the healer. And so we've got 7 archetypes. And so the invitation is to come and to reclaim those parts of ourselves that are needed now, like you know, that are, it's designed in a way to help women really, you know, just to think about where's the wise woman in me? How do I resonate with the wise woman? How can I, you know, is she suppressed? Am I, you know, is she alive in me, in my life? Is she supporting me? Whatever. And so, so it's a reclamation weekend, an inner reclamation weekend, which is empowering, right? But at the same time, ancestral work is grief work a lot of times, and it's rage work. And you know, what I've noticed in lots of my workshops is women come and they're carrying all this stuff, like, you know, grief and sadness and anger and frustration and anxiety and fear, and they just don't know what to do with it. You know, we have to create spaces to take these things, because if we're carrying all this stuff, if we're stuffing it down, if we're holding it in, it's blocking our joy and our, you know, our spontaneity and our adventure and our creativity and our love and our ability to connect. So it's this, you know, it's this weekend. We've got a whole lot of workshops. We've got some incredible speakers coming. We've got the archetypal, it's like an experiential exhibition, if you like. We've got an emporium where we've invited people who are making things and creating things using the old lost skills and crafts and arts. We've got a live show, a 3-night live show that the 2 of the group have written, and they're performing, which tells the story of woman from the birth of time in the Cali, which is the closest we've got in our culture here to a creation story, and then how the the powers, if you like, of women have been suppressed, and then how we reclaim them, and what the future looks like when that's all liberated, really. And it's a beautiful future. So it's a big event. It's like, multi-layered, and it feels like, it's going to be powerful. It's like coming together with like-minded women. It's not, it's called the Witches Revival, but it's about the witch in the sense of a woman in connection with her innate magic, right? Connected to the land, connected to herself, her ancestors, her sisters, each other. So yeah, that's the Witches Revival, which is coming up very soon.
That sounds amazing. What date does it start, and where can people find information about that?
So it's the 17th to the 20th of August this year, 2023. And you can find out all about it and see who the speakers are and all the different workshops that are on and everything else at the website, which is thewitcheshouse.org. And you can come for 4 days, you can come for 1 day, you can come for 2 days. We've tried to design it so that as many women can come as possible. We've got lots of women coming to immerse themselves in 4 days of it. And we'll have an opening ceremony every morning to bring, we'll all come together, because there's lots of women coming on their own. So we'll all come together. We'll hold an opening ceremony. We'll honor the ancestors. We'll do a little bit of ancestral connection work, set up the day, and then everyone kind of goes off to different workshops and different spaces. We're taking over the Story in Lancaster, which is an incredible venue. And then we'll finish each day with a closing ceremony. And so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're at the Story, and then Sunday we start in the garden at the Story, but we're outside. We're going to do the walk from the castle up to the hill. So yeah, so if anyone can get to Lancaster and wants to come and join us, you're very welcome. It's like we're diving deep and rising high.
I encourage everyone to go to that, because I know Cali did a very successful exhibition last year at the Story, and which was very highly attended and very successful, and so successful that it was talked about a lot in social media, along with her being on the Jonathan Ross TV show. So from that success and good organization, I would say that this is going to be yet another fantastic event. So I encourage people to attend that.
Thank you. That's very kind.
So how do you think ancestral healing serves the collective?
I think it's collective, because we have a shared ancestry, and particularly in this, in the UK, like I'm kind of focused on the UK and my own roots, but it kind of goes for all countries, really. Like, people have moved around for centuries, for millennia. And when you look at the timeline of our ancestry here, and we see the Normans and the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons and the Romans, and we're a mongrel breed, really, with mixed up belief systems and customs and traditions and our language even, and so with the awareness of that, how I see it helping and serve, how I've seen it help. It's like there's something about being able to hold being proud of where we've come from, having a positive relationship with our own roots, and also being able to honor the culture, different cultures, and breaking away from cultural appropriation. Like I'd gone to the Native Americans seeking spiritual connection, and in a way that was appropriation, not consciously, but actually that I have my own roots. Like if we trace our own roots, we find the answers that we need. So I think that's the first thing. It's like it deepens our understanding of humanity and the story of humanity and where we've come from. And it also helps us see that we're all carrying stories of traumatic experiences. So whether, slavery is a big topic at the minute, and racism, and the for me that, and it rather than it's not a black and white thing. There's a lot of nuance in that field, and in that, in that whole world. And so looking at our personal stories, our personal ancestral stories, and listening to those of others, it opens our hearts and it deepens our connections, because we all carry stories of victimhood. We all carry stories of persecution, the perpetrator, and I think it's a pathway that can increase levels of compassion and understanding and connection, right? And help us to evolve in a more connected way, to create a more connected world, connected with the land as well, right? That's a big part of it as too. Trauma disconnects us, and in my work that I did with women following the pilgrimage, I kind of talked, it came through as like, talk about it as 3 wounds of separation from self, separation from nature, separation from each other. And so when we really think about that and understand that it's nobody's fault, like there's no, like, blame doesn't help. The past is the past, and we will keep repeating the patterns unless we open those doors, unless we look at those stories, unless we feel the discomfort of, some of our ancestors that didn't do very nice things, or, some of our ancestors that, was subject to abject poverty, or, extreme suffering, whatever. We're not going to stop it happening now unless we can look at that and own it and feel it. And it's a collective piece of work. None of us can save the world individually, it has to be, it's our collective story. And I think at this time, when we're in the 6th mass extinction and we're standing at a crossroads, and very quickly we need to decide which way to go, the more of us that are looking at the collective story, the collective trauma, and working in the field of collective healing, the better, the better.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There is a common theme that every human is experiencing, and it's getting everyone to acknowledge that in order to harmonize relationships with each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's such an important work.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just, I think there's a poem and a ritual you want to, as a rallying cry to help the dynamics of the witches that you'd like to share.
Yeah, so when I was kind of immersed in my own ancestral work and the witch, the ancestors from the burning times, as I call it, which is a term that was coined by, I think it was Starhawk back in the 90s. The burning times as a way of describing the period of the witch hunts, which, by the way, affected the whole community. It wasn't just the witches. It affected everyone anyway. Along with the instruction to take this work out on the road, this poem came through. Now, I'm not a writer. I'm not a poet, and this just dropped in like in 10 minutes. And so I know it wasn't, it was from somewhere else. And it was the rallying cry, right? It was what I was being instructed to go and do. So yes, it would be great if I could share it. Thank you. It's called Unleash the Witches. There is witch in my blood. There is witch in my bones. In the stillness of night, she is calling me home. As I listen in deeply, I hear she is screaming. Her grief and her fury, they shatter my dreaming. Wake up from your slumber, there's no time to waste. In the silence of darkness, she urges me haste. I have left you with wounds that make cracks in your soul, but also with gifts that may heal you back whole. My dowry is rich, a chest full of treasure, bursting with color and wrapped up in pleasure. I offer you wisdom from the womb of the earth, intuitive healing, the miracle of birth. Through me come your roots, they are ancient and long, your right to belong told through story and song. I gift you my heart that is loving and kind, my community spirit and intelligent mind. We are magic, you see, and magic is real, not something we do, but something we feel. Take back your body, take back your power, dance naked and wild on the old witching hour. For my wounds are so deep, I am broken inside. I have learnt I'm unsafe, to survive I must hide. I mistrust my sisters, wear masks of deception, and shut down my light in exchange for connection. There is horror in my bones and violence in my blood, but there's never a lotus without black sticky mud. You must feel this to heal this and are held by Great Mother. Go gather the witches and sister each other. For there is witch in your blood and witch in your bones, and life is now calling for maiden to crone, to bleed on the land and step into the fire, and unleash the witches to shine and inspire. For there is witch in our blood and witch in our bones, and in the stillness of night they are calling us home.
That's so amazing. And when you were talking, one could tell it was a direct transmission, because as you speak, you can feel that transmission. And it's so obvious to me that you are not only help that collective, not only helping heal the feminine wound, but also helping to heal the masculine wound, because from the healing of one part becomes the healing of another part. So it's such fantastic work. And I honor you for all the work that you've done, for all the risks that you've taken, for following your heart, and for trusting your ancestors, because it is true that when we are delving within the shadow and the darkness, it's a heart-centered warrior journey, but knowing that we've got these amazing guides and ancestors with us makes that journey a bit more easier. But from doing the amazing work that you have is the unfoldment of so many healings, not only for individuals, for the collective. So I want to congratulate you on all your work and your future work. And I know the ancestors are extremely proud of you.
Thank you. And thank you for being an incredible teacher.
Yeah. Thank you.
That the training with you was a fundamental, it's like a linchpin in all of it, out of which it's all grown really. So we're walking each other home.
There we are.
Thank you.
So before we share how people can contact you, is there anything else that you feel you need to say, tune into the energy that we're in now, that you feel is coming up, before we share how people can contact you?
I think, just to say that for me, with ancestral work, for me, it's really grounded work. So like when we think of ancestors, we think of spirit. And of course that's a big part of it. And the evolution of consciousness and all of that. And another big part of it is the land, is the earth. And for me, the two are inseparable. So, it's like this work is grounding, which I think is really important right now. Like we're in a time when the structures that we have relied upon for support, like in the UK, the NHS, the National Health Service, and the school system, the education system, the political system, all of it. It's things are changing, things are breaking down. There is increasing amounts of division and polarization and separation. And we're being called back to our own selves and our connection with the land and our connection with what it means to be human and why we're here. And for me, the ancestral work has given me those answers, the ancestral answers. So if people are, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and anxiety around in the collective, and the ancestral work is a huge antidote to that. I think that that's kind of what I would say to finish. And in terms of contacting me, I've got two websites, thewitcheshouse.org. So that's the one where you can find information about the revival. And then there's going to be other stuff. I've got other things in the pipeline beyond that, online courses and things. And then my personal website is loveisOurPower.com. So that's where you could read a little bit about my ancestral healing work and my approach to that, and the pilgrimage and all of that work that I did then. So yeah.
And in the bio, we'll also put details about your Instagram page, etc.
Okay, yeah. Great, yeah.
So thank you again, Cali. It's been wonderful talking to you and your amazing work. And I'm looking forward to see what else will be emerging in the future. And I wish you all good luck with your event in August.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.